Melissa and her boyfriend at the time, Nixium, worked at the same job. When they broke up, Nixium called Melissa to tell her that they could still be friends. Even though Melissa was crushed, she knew they had to be civil at work and agreed. The next day, when Melissa arrived at work, she saw Nixium telling the co-workers that she had cheated on him. He tried to make Melissa look so bad that she could possibly lose her job. The worst part for Melissa was when she found out that he had cheated on her, with Nixium even bringing his new girlfriend in just to show her off and rub Melissa's face in it. Nixium and his new girlfriend would purposely walk back and forth near Melissa just so she could see him. It ended up getting so bad that the manager stepped in and, after listening to Melissa's story, fired Nixium for harassment.
Spinal Palm has a cousin who sleepwalks and talks. Spinal Palm's cousin loves dinosaurs, so at least once a week he wakes up in the dead of night and walks around making dinosaur sounds. Quite frequently, he will also sleepwalk outside. He walks outside in his long johns and will walk half a mile, then just curl up under this pine tree. That would be bad enough, but it happens during the middle of winter in northern Alaska. He has gotten hypothermia multiple times from this, but never too seriously. Spinal Palm now has to lock all the doors and windows to prevent him from leaving.
One time, when she was 14, Mimi had her boyfriend over for a visit. He ended up staying for dinner, and her brother made some chicken breasts. When dinner was ready, Mimi and her boyfriend went to the table. As soon as the chicken breasts were served, she quickly realized that the chicken was still raw. Her boyfriend, on the other hand, didn't care and gobbled it up. He even reached over and ate Mimi's. She was surprised he didn't end up getting salmonella.
Gooby, her sister, and her brother were on vacation to go to Minecon and stay at a hotel. Something creepy caught her eye, however, while in the hotel room. It was a creepy shadow on the left wall across from them, and it was walking closer. Another time, they went into their hotel room to see the bathroom door was open. The staff said that they never left the doors open. And then, in the middle of the night, her sister said that she felt really uncomfortable. Gooby's brother checked under the mattress and found a woman's dead body. They never went to that hotel ever again.
Sid was 22 when he was dating this girl. She was really nice, but also really strange at times. On Thanksgiving, Sid and a bunch of family friends got together. While they all gathered at the table to eat, she looked rather uncomfortable. Sid asked,
"What's wrong?"
She just assured him that everything was fine. Well, when she went to go get the turkey, she came back with it, got on one knee, very rushed, and asked him to marry her. But it turned out that she literally broke her knee. She dropped the turkey and started crying. Sid didn't know exactly what was going on with her, but they literally dropped all communication after that day.
Andy was 12 when her mother took her to the mall one day to shop for clothes. They looked in the more high-end stores, but Andy didn't really see anything that she liked. However, her mom had a handful of hideous-looking clothes that she wanted her to try on. So Andy went to the fitting rooms, which were built into the walls with nothing but a fancy curtain between the entire world and the changing customer. Just after she had taken off everything but her underwear, someone flung the curtain open. Andy fucking screamed like a dying animal, not sure who it was. It turned out to be her mother with more hideous-looking clothes that she wanted her to try on. The entire store saw Andy in nothing but her underwear, and her mother actually got mad at her for screaming.
One thing that always embarrassed me was my father had this tendency to always refer to me in third person when we were out in public. So for example, if we were going to the movies together, the cashier would ask, "Oh, how many?" And my father would reply, "Oh, it's just me and Nixium today going to see this movie." Or if we went out to eat together at a restaurant, he would say something like, "Oh, can me and Nixium get some bread as an appetizer to start?" It was always really weird and embarrassing just having him throwing my name out to everybody in public like that. And I didn't like it. And I still don't like it to this day because he still does it.
At Captain School, people often lost things. When their belongings were found, they were usually taken to the lost and found. One day, the principal said that there shouldn't be any lost items. If a student lost something, they would have to pay for it. So the principal hired someone to sit on a bench next to the lost and found. That meant if Captain had something in the lost and found, he would have to buy back the item he lost. It was the dumbest rule in his school.
So when Sid was in 7th grade, he wanted to impress this girl. They were having an academic celebration, which basically meant the entire school got to run around outside. So he was with the girl and a couple of her friends. They went to the dugout, which had an ant infestation. While they were
Fucking.
around with the ant nest, Sid thought it would make him look cool if he stomped on it. Not thinking the plan through and wearing sandals, the
Fuckers.
swarmed up his legs. He had to dump his soda on his leg to get them off. Sid spent the rest of the day sitting on the dugout bench, fending off tears, feeling like
Shit.
considering that the girl was trying desperately to comfort his poor ass. Luckily, she already liked him.
Zaragamba and Dolan were at the dinner table prank calling fast food places. It was fun at first until his brother said, "Hey, what if we prank call Domino's and say that we're stuck in their bathroom?" Zaragamba thought it was a great idea, but he accidentally dialed 911, and when he tried to delete the number, he pressed call. 6 seconds later, a female operator said, "This is 911, what is your emergency?" They both sat in silence. "Well, I'm now sending police to your address now, okay?" said the operator, before hanging up. They both sat quietly for 16 long minutes, until they heard a loud banging on the door and somebody yelling, "Police! Open up the door!" Their mother came out and said, "Why the hell is there police here?" Then she answered the door. The police officer said, "Is there an emergency here?" Their mother said, "No, there is no emergency. My 2 sons are just playing on their phones." Then the officer said, "Well, I have to search the house really quick, and then I will leave." Then the mother said, "Like hell you are," before slamming the door shut. They were both grounded for 5 months.
Melissa used to be in a band and played the flute in 6th grade. In their performance, some people were assigned a solo randomly from the teacher. Melissa was very shy and nervous to play in front of so many people, so she was hoping that she wouldn't get picked, but she did. On the day of the performance, she got over her nerves and actually performed her solo really well. But just before she finished, her mother stood up and started screaming, "Woo! That's my baby girl right there! Knock 'em dead, pumpkin! After this, you're getting a well-deserved Happy Meal!" To this day, her friends haven't let her live it down.
The weirdest dream I ever had was when I was 15 years old. It was an all-white room, and there was nothing around, just a table, a chair, and a tuna sandwich. So I sat on the chair and I looked at the tuna sandwich, and I opened it up to see if there was any mayo in it, and there was no mayo in it, so I was kind of sad about that. So I just ate the sandwich. 5 minutes later, I woke up and I was hungry for a tuna sandwich. That is by far the most weirdest dream I've ever had, because to this day, I can still remember it, and sometimes I get really hungry for that tuna sandwich. And the plot twist is, I'm a vegan. When Gergat was in 5th grade, there was a girl named Melon who always talked about her makeup kit and lipstick. One day he went up to her and asked, "Do you want a date?" She blushed and said, "Well, if you drink out of a toilet, I will let you be my boyfriend." Gergat gulped, but agreed, and went to one of the toilets, which happened to have pee and the biggest poo he ever saw in it. But that did not stop him. He plunged his head down and drank it. After 10 seconds he stopped, and after texting a photo of himself with dookie all over his face, Gergat and Melon ended up getting together.
When Mimi was 6, her mom sometimes left her and her brother with a babysitter. At first, this babysitter let them chat and watch movies, but after a while, she forced them to watch Bible cartoons in silence. The babysitter also put a ban on going upstairs, even though that's where the bathroom was. Mimi and her brother became so curious that they snuck upstairs to have a look. Their babysitter caught them and screamed at them, calling Mimi and her brother the children of the devil. She forced them to stand in a corner in total silence and wouldn't let them eat, drink, or even do their homework. This went on until Mimi broke down and told her mom. They ended up getting a new babysitter who was so much nicer. She even let them use the bathroom.
Doopy was in class one day when suddenly a kid yelled out, "There's a polyrath!" Doopy's teacher then asked him, "Want to go catch it?" Everybody screamed yes. The teachers were so used to seeing their students playing Pokemon Go that he let each kid leave the class one at a time to catch the polyrath out in the hall.
The weirdest job I was ever paid to do was when an old man would always come to me every single morning outside of school. He would be like, "Hey, Pringle, come over here." And I'd be like, "What do you want, man? I got math class pretty soon." And then the guy would say, "Hey, man, I'ma need you to run in a circle, right? And then afterwards, I need you to grab a pencil, sharpen it, and bring it back to me. And after you done, make sure you lick the tip." And this was always weird because I don't know what he was ever going to do with that pencil, but every single time I did it, he gave me $50. Until one day in a dark alley, I saw him. I saw him with those pencils that he asked me to wet and everything. And he would just grab the pencils and then start eating them. He would eat them over and over, and he would just chew it like it was bubble gum. And then he would say, "Pencils licked by Pringles. Delicious." After that day, I always saw him as weird. But if you ever wanted me to do it again for $50, you're damn right I will.
Pringle is very competitive. One night, his cousins came over to watch a movie. It was cold, so they put the heater on, and Pringle saw an opportunity for competition. He suggested they have a contest to see who could sit right in front of the heater for the longest. Pringle and his cousins sat there for 3 hours with sweat pouring off them. They'd had a lot of soda that night, so they really needed to pee. Pringle held it in for as long as he could. He was so determined to win that he'd peed in the empty popcorn bowl. He ended up winning the contest, but his cousins never looked at him the same again.
What's the worst nightmare I've ever had? Well, when I was younger, I had this recurring, horrifying dream that there's this little area in my primary school. It's called the undercover area, where you kind of just chill out with your mates. It's not really much there, just a few seats and stuff. It was nicely painted, all the walls and stuff. But anyway, regardless, I had a dream that I was there. It was nighttime. I was all alone. No one from school, just utter silence, except for this one figure. It was like Dracula or a vampire or just this guy in this cloak, and he had the same kind of big evil teeth, and he looked menacing and stuff. And he would just kind of stand there and just silently judge me while I kind of walked around. I knew in my head it was a dream. I was thinking, okay, I'm in this stupid dream again. I don't know what to do. And every single time, without fail, in order to escape the dream that I knew was a dream, I would have to kill myself in several violent ways. I would grab a sword and cut open my stomach, and then I'd wake up. I would climb to the top of the undercover area and then jump off onto a pit of spikes. And as soon as I hit it, I'd feel incredible pain. I'd wake up. I remember one time I had to rip off my nutsack, and that was apparently painful enough to wake me up, so that gives you an idea. It was so annoying. It happened like every night for years and years, but, well, after a while it did go away, and I haven't had it since. Although, just as a little bonus, I did have a dream last night. It was one where in my city, that apparently I kept running from all these gangs that were shooting guns, and every time I turn a corner there's another gang, and I was constantly dodging bullets, and everyone was screaming and running. And then I got home and I turned on the news and it said it was happening all over the city and that there's no escape, and they're thinking about setting up like a little colony over like, I don't know, 20 minutes away, like just abandon the city to all these gangs. And I was like in tears about it, and I said to Gooby, "Oh God, we're gonna have to move because we're gonna die soon," and all that. And also in that dream, apparently Gooby's sister was dead. I don't know why, but it's just a horrifying dream. I don't have very nice dreams, apparently. It's crap. Sometimes I hate going to sleep. Well, most of the time I don't dream about anything, but God damn it. My fucking brain. That's all.
Civil Spider used to work at a gym inside a mall. The mall had something called Santa's Landing, which is where Santa would land in the parking lot via helicopter. So, while Civil Spider scrubbed the glass doors, he noticed a couple trying to get into the mall. He walked over to let them know that the mall was closed, but was cut off mid-sentence by one of them, who asked where Santa's Landing was. Civil Spider was puzzled, but pointed toward the parking lot where there was a large crowd of people. The couple got angry that he just pointed instead of speaking to them. They were so angry with him that they stormed off. As they stormed off, the man said, "This guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about." The man said that while they got stomped by the large crowd. Tolop was working at a Levi's store in the stockroom and needed to use the bathroom badly. He thought he turned off his walkie-talkie that they all had and put it in his pocket. Halfway through his piss, his co-worker knocked on the door and told him that his walkie-talkie was still on and that they could all hear him pissing. He panicked and quickly turned it off. One time Doopy was out with her 4-month-old son. They were on a bus when an old lady sat next to them. "Oh, a new baby. Must be my time to go soon." Unsure what to do, Doopy coughed and said,
Don't be daft.
She then proceeded to say, "Well, I have done everything on my bucket list. I have skinny dipped at 80, flew on a plane, skydived." Doopy zoned out until the old lady said, "Oh, and I fucked a 25-year-old last night." That's when Doopy thought she was nuts. Then the old lady pulled out a picture of a young man with one hand on her boobs and the other on her privates. Shocked and disgusted, Doopy got up and said,
That's just wrong on so many levels. You should be ashamed of yourself, you old crow.
With that, she took a little one and walked off the bus.
In 7th grade, Hellbent was walking out of class when he saw his girlfriend Pandora get shoved into a locker by a bully. She was freaking out, crying, kicking, screaming, being a real spaz. He ran to the locker room, pried it open with his bare hands, which made his hands bleed a lot. He didn't give a fuck. It's true love, bitch! The bully ran up and swung at him, but Hellbent stopped him with a hard punch to the gut. He punched so hard it left the darkest bruise he'd ever seen. That day he was a hero, and no one ever messed with him or his girlfriend ever again.
When Sweet Commando was 13, he went somewhere to eat with his grandfather after helping him fix his car. In the restaurant, some pretty girls were giggling and waving at him, and, well, being a teenage boy, he smiled and waved back. When they got back to the house, Sweet Commando's dad told him that there were holes in his pants. He looked down and there were 2 holes on either side of his crotch, the size of fists. He then realized why those girls were giggling and waving at him. He was just glad that he at least had underpants on.
A few years ago, Hellbent was working a dead-end job at KFC. One time, a family of 3 came in and placed an order. When Hellbent brought their food to the counter, he apologized and told the family they'd run out of barbecue sauce. When the little girl heard this devastating news, she threw their entire tray of food on the floor and started stomping all over it. Her mom then dragged the screeching child out of the restaurant by her hair, leaving her dad standing there awkwardly. He paid for the wasted food and apologized for his embarrassing family.
When Andy Mations was 8 years old, she spent some time with her cousins. They decided to take a walk through this isolated community, surrounded by lots of trees with a great big pond in the center. It was a very pleasant walk until they came upon this old white abandoned house. Her cousins told her that this house had been abandoned for years. The door was sealed, and so were all the windows, except for one of them. Her cousins told her that the house was rumored to be haunted. Andy Mations told them it wasn't haunted, and then they dared her to go in. So, trying to be tough, she climbed through the open window. Once inside, Andy Mations' hair stood up. She was facing the wall of a hallway with a room on each end. Through the cracks of the door, she could see old, colorful pieces of furniture and dark shadows moving around too. Turning towards the wall, Andy Mason saw blood start to coat it as these horrible faces seemed to stretch across the wall like they were trying to burst through a rubber barrier. She heard her cousin scream for her to get out of there. Just then, everything went silent. So silent her ears rang. Her cousin started screaming again, and when Andy Mations had turned to her right to make her exit, there was a huge black figure with very deep red skin and black eyes. His clothes were torn and black. Her heart dropped. She quickly leapt out of the window like she was trying to fly. Andy Mations scrambled up to see the figure leaning over with his hands resting on the window. All of them ran all the way back home. Andy Mations kept turning back to see if it was following them, until her and her cousins ran straight to their moms, screaming. They all prayed together. Andy Mations never saw that demon thing again, but ever since then she's been absolutely petrified of ghosts.
One time, late in the summer, Doopy was walking to the store with a friend. As they passed by the park, there was a homeless man sitting inside a big cardboard box. It was almost 6 feet tall, and the man inside knew that Doopy saw him even though she pretended not to. All of a sudden, he whipped out an old, stained guitar with a missing string. The guy was wearing some pretty old clothes, but was still somewhat handsome, so Doopy waited. Her friend was worried that he might try to kidnap or rape them. The homeless man proceeded to play an off-tune version of Jingle Bells, when his friend suddenly jumped out from behind the box and started twerking really fast. It was so random and hilarious that Doopy and her friend began rolling on the ground, laughing hysterically. After they finished, Doopy gave them $5 and with tears in her eyes said,
You've got to do Oh Christmas Tree now.
Gooby also had a terrible substitute teacher. They were speaking about tongue twisters, and because Gooby doesn't speak, she couldn't say 7 silly sausages. She started to shout at her, saying she was just trying to annoy her and trying to be a rebel. The entire class was shouting at the teacher, saying, Gooby doesn't talk. 1 month later, the teacher came back and got angry, calling one kid a manipulative little freak that fakes having diabetes so he can have fizzy drinks and other sweets in school. Surprisingly, she wasn't fired. When Tolop was in 7th grade, 5 bullies decided to gang up on him at the same time. 5 guys versus 1 Tolop meant that Tolop ended up getting completely knocked unconscious. When he woke up, he was lying in the middle of the schoolyard with nothing but his boxer shorts and all of his belongings gone. Luckily, the school officials caught the bullies and they were given a permanent record. What a shame. Good luck finding a job after that. Sid and his girlfriend were having a dare competition, kept increasing their dares to crazier and crazier things. Eventually, Sid dared her to jump in the fountain at a mall. She said she would do it the next day, but Sid didn't actually believe her. She actually showed up in a swimsuit at the mall the next day and jumped in. She was arrested for the incident. Sid was banned for 6 months and his girlfriend ended up getting banned for a year.
Spinal Palm was told by his mom to never ride his skateboard at night. Being the rebellious young man he was, he disobeyed his mom and went skateboarding one night. While he was having a good time on his skateboard, Spinal Palm fell and scraped his knee. When he got home, his mom asked him what had happened. Spinal Palm told her that aliens had taken a blood sample. She didn't buy it, and he was grounded for a month. When Legna was talking to his crush over Skype, they got onto the topic of breakfast. Trying to be slick, Legna wanted to say, "Oh yeah, man, I'm as smooth as cream cheese on your bagel." Instead, he messed up and said, "Ah yes, you're a smooth bagel." He didn't stop laughing and ended up just slinking away under a blanket. Thankfully, that didn't ruin things, and they still talked 5 years later.
When Spincess was in kindergarten, she had a huge crush on a boy named Tolop. She had her mom put her long hair into a cute style and put on a cute dress for school. She made a knitted rose for him and placed it on his desk before class. He saw it and shoved it in his book bag. At recess, Spincess followed Tolop around but eventually tripped and fell. He immediately came running over to help. So the next day, she had an idea that if she kept falling down in front of him, he'd keep coming to help her. It worked for a while, but eventually, he caught on and just asked Spincess if she liked him. She said yes, and it was mutual, but eventually she ended up going to a different school. They still talk though. Not many people know this, but Hellbent loves his pet reptiles. One day, he wanted to do something nice for them, so he cooked up the raw crickets in some delicious bacon grease. This was such a hit with his pets that Hellbent wanted to try it for himself. He cooked up a big batch of the crunchy insects and started chowing down. When Hellbent's mom came home, she saw her son eating disgusting bugs and shouted, "What on earth are you doing?" Hellbent got a big lecture about why it's not okay to cook insects on his mom's stove, and he was grounded for a week.
One time Pringle and his friend, Dolan's brother, went camping in a state forest. They woke up to some strange noises outside their tent, and they looked outside to find a grizzly bear rummaging through their campsite. Apparently, the people in the campsite next to them accidentally left their food scraps laying all over the ground, even though there were signs literally everywhere telling them not to. Luckily though, the bear got bored and he left them alone.